were being as safe as they could and tried to create some distance. A vehicle traveling at that high rate of speed, they weren't able to keep up and believe it created too much of a danger to the community, and they lost the individual at that time. While they might have done a good job of shaking the deputies that night, but they couldn't run from science. Our forensic specialist that evening did a wonderful job at the scene, and we were able to identify Pedro Gomez, 30 years of age, an Hispanic male with quite a lengthy violent criminal history, as our guy who was who conducted the robbery. One out of the four that evening, knowing that the U.S. Marshals Task Force is absolutely the best trained unit in the Tampa Bay area to pursue these violent offenders, some of the most heinous individuals that victimize the Tampa Bay community. We asked for their assistance in locating this individual. Again, some of the best in the business of what they do. They begin tracking down multiple locations, which led them here to Lake Ellen Drive here in North Carrollwood area of the community of our county. As they're conducting surveillance tonight, around 4 p.m., they see a Hispanic individual that matches the description of our wanted subject, along with the female. As they give the orders to move in, these two individuals again decided we're not going to jail tonight. So they begin ramming task force officers' vehicles in an attempt to escape arrest. They come down this beautiful residential street as these task force members are trying to give chase. Luckily, thankfully, they were able to block them in down at the end of the road and take these two individuals into custody without further incident. The driver of this car was not our bad guy. We do believe he, along with the passenger, are a part of our robbery, but I can't unequivocally say that, so I don't want to make that comment right now, but we do believe they were a part of this Mother's Day robbery on Sunday. Victor Gomez, let me back up. Rico Dykes was the driver of this black Mercedes. He's also has an extensive and violent criminal history. He's being placed under arrest tonight for warrants out of Polk County. He also, this black Mercedes that they were using to ram task force officers, using to create this unsafe environment in this residential neighborhood, they also victimized the person's car who that belonged to. This black Mercedes was a stolen car. So we're working through that now, recovering this vehicle, as you can imagine, with some extensive damage, back to who owns this car. As task force officers then turned their attention back to the residence after learning that Pedro was inside the residence, they go and start trying to make contact. They start working towards this peaceful resolution of having this bad guy, someone who defines the definition of bad guy, come outside the house. They're starting to negotiate for 20 minutes as they're bullhorning, trying to get this individual to peacefully surrender. He doesn't want to surrender. At that point, they ask us to activate our SWAT team. As soon as we activate our SWAT team and negotiators, Pedro, in fact, did give up and come out and peacefully surrendered. So he has been placed into custody without incident. Pedro advises us that he was the only person left inside the house. Or I should say, let me back up. Pedro advises that the task force members that he was the only one left inside the house. There's no one inside the house. Well, for everyone's safety, task force members are trained to go in and have to clear this residence now to make sure no one else is in there. Who could be in there? Is everyone in there under their free will, knowing that the type of violent offenders that we're dealing with here today? As they go in and they're clearing the residence and doing this strategic clearing throughout, as they enter the one bedroom, the closet door gets thrusted open and one of the Hispanic males comes out, taking this aggressive, violent, tactical stance and then an aggressive maneuver towards them. He actually comes out of the closet with his arm all the way out, holding the gun, charging two of the task force members. In fear, clear fear for their life, they had no choice but to discharge their service weapons. And at this point, Victor Gomez, who we believe was also part of this robbery, another subject who would have done anything not to go to jail tonight, was transported to St. Joe's North, where he succumbed to his injuries as a result of this deployment of deadly force. There's two task force officers who were involved. One of them was an officer of the Tampa Police Department, and I'll ask Assistant Chief Lee Burkall to address that in a moment. And the other one was a Pinellas County deputy. It is the policy of the U.S. Marshals Task Force not to release the names of individuals that are involved in uses of deadly force. We'll certainly respect that. Now, the Sheriff's Office is conducting a search warrant at the residence. The search warrant will be to find and discover any items, weapons that we know that were used in connection to the robbery for Sunday night. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement, like a lot of most of the shootings here in Hillsborough County and in this Tampa Bay area, will take over the investigation to again ensure that transparency here that Tampa Bay law enforcement agencies continue to ensure. They'll take over the investigation. They will also be doing a search warrant at the residence. Their search warrant will be in connection with the use of deadly force here tonight. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant Chief of Police with the Tampa Police Department, Lee Burkall.
Thank you, Sheriff. And as you said, these are the best trained officers, and thank God they were the ones out here tonight. Several of our officers are part of the U.S. Marshals Task Force, and as you said, Sheriff, they were involved in a very violent situation. Fortunately, all the officers are okay. Our officer involved in the shooting has been with the Tampa Police Department for 12 years and on this task force for 6 years. This task force arrests the most violent offenders in our community, and this evening they were faced with an extremely violent encounter. Every day this task force works hard to keep this community safe. And tonight, unfortunately, our officer was faced with no choice but to use deadly force. Thank you.
This time I'll ask Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Mr. Scanlon, if you'll come up.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good evening. Yeah, I can confirm that FDLE is conducting the officer-involved shooting investigation this incident this evening. We have a memo of understanding with the U.S. Marshal Service to conduct their officer-involved shootings, and that does extend to task force officers, as you heard here from the Sheriff and the Chief. It's very early in the investigation. We're not prepared to release any details of the shooting at this time. And we'll direct any inquiries back to the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department. Thank you. Sheriff?
At this time, we'll try to take any questions you may have.
Sheriff, you said they have prior records, a lot of them. Are there any other cases, any other robberies that we're looking into that they may have been a part of?
Absolutely. And again, I think that's what makes Tampa Bay area law enforcement so special. You see the agencies represented here today, and we all have members on this task force, is criminals don't know jurisdictional boundaries. And that's what makes this task force so effective. But with the crime center that we have here in Hillsborough County that an agency from surrounding counties participates in, we're able to share that information. So we know for sure they were involved in a robbery over in Polk County and looking to see if they're responsible for any other robberies.
Correct me if I'm wrong, 3 different men, 2 arrested, 1 shot and killed, is that correct?
Correct. 3 men and then a female. And we believe all 4 were involved in the robbery on Sunday night. Can't confirm that at this point. We certainly will update that later. And again, these criminal histories, these individuals, we will certainly release that to all of you as quick as we can.
Is the woman charged at this point? You didn't mention her name.
She is not. She has not been charged. At this point, she's still witness, but again, detectives are just starting to question her and work through everything, all the events leading up till today as well.
So is she part of the group that could be involved in the robbery, or she's not part of the group?
We know that a female was involved in the group. We don't know if she is. Again, we suspect she is, but we're working through that. I just don't want to condemn someone without having further proof.
Can you elaborate on the forensic evidence that led you to Pedro?
Yeah, it was some fingerprint evidence. We got some beautiful fingerprints. Again, as he's walking around the store carefree, he was drinking a can of Mountain Dew. And technology is phenomenal. You can maybe run from the police, but you can't run from technology. So we were able to get his fingerprints off that Mountain Dew can. The forensics team did a beautiful job of the quick turnaround for us to be able to go secure a warrant and give that warrant to the Marshals Task Force that led us here today. Again, I can't tell you, I think all of us, everyone who lives in Hillsborough County and beyond can take a deep breath today and sleep a little easier knowing that these violent criminals won't be traumatizing anyone anytime soon.
Sheriff, the people who live out here in this neighborhood, just talking with a few of them over the last 30 minutes or so, how should they feel? I understand some of these people have been living here for some time, had some issues here. How should they be feeling right now, the people living in this neighborhood?
Anyone that lives in this neighborhood should feel the same as anyone, I think, in the entire Tampa Bay area, because these individuals are so violent and wanted to, without hesitation, terrorize this community. I think we're all going to sleep a little easier tonight.
On that note, the neighbors also tell me that they stuck out in the neighborhood, not necessarily in a good way. Were they on your radar in any way?
Not that I'm aware of. We're certainly looking into that. That's part of the latent part that we're looking into. But again, it'd be too premature for me to sit here and tell you, hey, we knew who they were. We knew this residence. We knew who was here. I can't make those comments now. That will probably come out a little later on.
Last question. So at this point, only Pedro and Rico are charged connected to this case?
Pedro, Victor, and Rico Dykes. And like I said, we'll put all that information out.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.